We are welcoming Grant Welker back from our partner at the Boston Business Journal. All right, so we have something to talk to you about today that is on the minds of a lot of people. They may have even gotten excited when they saw this article in the Boston Business Journal. This is about the real estate market. This is about it being a buyer's market. Everyone's holding their breath because buying here in Boston is an expensive venture all on its own. So we were like, yes, we've got a little hope, but we're going to dive into that in a second. So, no matter what way you look at it, it's been a tough market for many years for home buyers here in Massachusetts and around the country. So, in the article, what got people excited, Boston was in the top six hottest markets. So, before we get any more excited, help bring us back down to earth here. Tell me exactly what does that ranking mean?
I do have to unfortunately bring people back down to earth if they are a buyer or a would-be buyer. So it is shaping up largely, if you will, nationally to be more of a buyer's market. Not so much the case in the Boston area. It's really everything is relative in the Boston area of what you're paying compared to what you might be spending in a different neighborhood. But the hottest zip code, so this is where we kind of come in. And this is what people would expect, I think, if you're talking about the hottest zip code, places that are still still costing so much money. So Boston's 02114 zip code. So this covers the northern slope of Beacon Hill, and the West End is one of the hottest. Yes, sixth place. So that really means it's that you're paying even more than you used to. It's something to the tune of $2 million for a house. Uh, it doesn't. It's a lot more than you would see in a lot of the other hottest zip codes because these are places. A lot of them, when you're comparing zip codes nationally, one could be a small market in a more rural area. So if it's doubling in price, it's still a lot less than 2 million. What makes Boston and this zip code in particular stand out is that it was about $2 million to begin with, and it's still up in that range because prices are just so high.
Now, mortgage rates are lowering, according to Zillow. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage is eased to about 6.83%. Is that low enough to make a dent? Is that low enough to make a difference?
Not generally speaking, no, not in a meaningful way. It's just still so high compared to 4 or 5 years ago that a lot of people feel locked into where they are. There are empty nesters who are reluctant to downsize because they don't want to lose that rate that they have. They might, and they're holding onto a house that's large enough to fit a family. And the other side, you have growing families who want to have more space, and there are just so few homes available to them. They may even feel like they're reluctant to move into a larger home because they themselves are locked into a rate that might be in the threes or even the twos. Those are the big factors that are keeping the number of home sales these days so low.
Now, home listings have grown in many markets, leading many to see it as a buyer's market. That means that if I'm going to buy a home here in Massachusetts, that in theory, I should have the upper hand. But as you were saying earlier, that's not necessarily the case here in Boston, unfortunately.
No, not too much here. We're still seeing a lot fewer sales than we would have years ago. It's better than it was a couple years ago. There are more people looking to sell. People were kind of frozen, I think, early in the pandemic, not sure what they were going to be doing or where they'd be living or working, what their work situation may be like in terms of remote or hybrid work. Now that's more settled, but it's those other factors. It's mortgage rates that are keeping people where they are. And it's also economic uncertainty. We're looking now, people don't know whether we're heading into a recession, tariffs, and other factors that when there's so much uncertainty, people hesitate in terms of putting down their whole life savings on a new home.
Now, I know we talked about the zip code 02114, so Beacon Hill, part of Beacon Hill, and West End. Do you see any sectors around Boston that could be potential landing spots for buyers? Metro West, Central Mass.
I think we're going to continue to see a lot of the gateway cities land a lot of residents closer to Boston. That means a place like Revere or Chelsea. That means Brockton or Lowell or Lawrence. These are places that are relatively affordable. They're largely places that are still accessible by commuter rail. And when you talk about commuter rail, we're also meaning now you can connect to Fall River and New Bedford. Out in Central Mass, It is places like Worcester or even Fitchburg who could give people that option to stay in the area, whether their job or family or both is keeping them local, but to see prices that are much more affordable than what we are seeing, especially inside 128.
Now, the question many may be wondering, and maybe some of us are holding our breath, do you have any insight on when the housing market is going to recover in the way that we thought it would? Because I think right now in 2025, folks are like, even if there has been some progress, it doesn't look or feel the way we thought that it would.
It's not going to feel like progress to people who are looking for a house, not these days. It is what we, as we talked about with largely mortgage rates, and it's that we're not building housing as quickly as we need to, or even as quickly as we used to only a couple of years ago. Boston is around 10-year lows, the Boston metro area. And when there's just not enough new supply coming onto the market, it's not enough to keep prices moderating. It's not, never mind to lower them, but even just to make it something where people can see that there's progress and know that there's more opportunities for them. There's just so few to be had because even the projects that we are building, they're more often kind of tucked into certain neighborhoods, something that might used to be an industrial property or a low scale commercial property, might be a 4 or 5 story building, but it's not nearly enough. We need tens of thousands of new residential units. We're not getting them, and that's just keeping the supply way too strained.
So this is a lot of information that might make a homeowner or a future homeowner go, whew, okay. Let me just walk away from this and try this again tomorrow. What would you want to say to potential homeowners if they walk away from this conversation with nothing else? What would you want to say to them? What should they expect?
Well, before we were bringing people back down to earth. So now, now I'll give something for more optimism.
We're gonna keep it balanced. We're
You
getting
got
the
to, you got to
info
do
they
both
need, but
sides.
also like you can do this. It's just gonna be a lot harder than you'd like for it to be.
Right. The best thing we can say, and this is something that maybe if it outweighs tariffs and other things that are driving costs way up, is that the state government is really prioritizing this, and city and other local governments as well. We saw this with the Baker administration with the MBTA Communities Act, where they are pressuring cities and towns to zone for denser residential development. And with the Healy administration, they passed a huge bond bill last year that helps with a lot of projects across the state. They've also just last week announced a program to sell surplus state-owned properties for what could be more than 3,000 housing units. It's become such a critical issue that it can't help but rise to high up on the priority list for so many officials that they're going to find a way to try to keep people in Boston. Whenever we see surveys about what are the biggest drawbacks of living here, yes, the weather may come up, but it's largely just that it's so expensive. And if Boston and Massachusetts want to hold on to its talent, and we're always bragging about our talented workforce, we need to make it more affordable. Thankfully, our public officials know that and they're working on it. We just hope it matters enough.
Absolutely. Is there anything you want to make sure that you include that I did not ask you specifically?
No, I don't think so. We covered a lot. I think that should do it.
Awesome. Okay, well, Grant Welker from the Boston Business Journal, our partner here at WBZ, thank you so much for the insight. Balance in the facts with the don't give up. We know it's hard, but you got this, and we're just trying to equip you with the information.
Thanks so much for having me.
Grant, thank you.